All right. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us today. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule to be here. We're going to talk about the best practices to safeguard your data against ransomware. My name is Carla Federico. I'm the Director of Marketing with Infrascale. The Gartner logo on the screen here, we were a 2015 Gartner Cool Vendor in business continuity and disaster recovery. I also want to share my contact information. You've got my email, my Skype, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, everything on here. If you want to contact me after the webinar, I'd love to hear from you. Lots of questions that often come up are, is there going to be a recording available? So yes, we are recording, and the video will be posted at infrascale.com/webinars within 24 hours. I also ask if you can have a copy of the slides. So yeah, you definitely can. There's a copy of these slides available in the handout section right now. So if you just go to the handouts, you can grab that. I also included just a really interesting report in there as well, the 2016 DRAS Attitudes and Adoption Report. So there's just another piece of information for you in there. I'd love to have you join the conversation. You can follow us on Twitter at Infrascale or Facebook as well. So we'd love to hear from you. And then if you have any questions throughout the presentation, just use that questions tool to type them in. We are also going to do a giveaway at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. So all you need to do to be eligible for that is ask lots of relevant and on-topic questions. So you'll be able to use the question tool to do that. Okay, here's a look at the agenda. First, we're going to talk about some ransomware trends in 2016, what we've been seeing lately, some of the best practices when it comes to ransomware, of course, the subject matter for today. We'll talk about implementing a proper solution so that you can really avoid those ransomware attacks and work against ransomware. And then the Q&A and that prize giveaway that I just mentioned. So just make sure to ask lots of questions throughout the presentation as we go along. And with that, we'll dive right in. So let's just start with a quick understanding of what ransomware is and what it's not. Ransomware definitely takes lots of different forms. It's a type of malware that denies access to a device or files until the ransom's been paid. So what it actually does is encrypt a user's files, and then it forces them to pay a fee to the hacker to regain access to their own data. And now here's where there's an even bigger problem with ransomware, is that it encrypts the files on a workstation, and then it can travel across your network and encrypt files on your network drives as well. So that's how one infected user can bring down a whole department or even an entire organization. And ever since computers have been in use, programmers have been able to create malicious software. Even this is sort of the evolution of ransomware, but even before 1986, in 1971, the creeper virus was created. So that's really the earliest example that we have of how quickly malware can spread through systems. And then, like you see, between about 2006 and 2010, high-speed encryption. So the proliferation of malware is really moving at an alarming rate. By 2007, as much malware was produced in that one single year than had been produced in the previous 20 years altogether. So where does that go? So in 2016, there are two types of organizations, those that have been breached and those that have been breached but don't know it yet. All right, let's take a look now at a couple of trends. So we know that ransomware gets activated by a user. The user is going to let it in somehow, and then it's going to start modifying the files on your systems until you get that triggered message of a ransom demand. Now, the ransom often increases as the hours pass if you don't respond. And in the first quarter of 2016, this is the first stat here that we're looking at up at the top, almost 3,000 new malware modifications were reported, and that's just what was detected in Q1 of 2016. And then we know that they're getting away with it because the FBI reported over $200 million has been paid in ransomware in just the first 3 months of 2016. And you can compare that with a total of $25 million paid in all of 2015. So last year, the entire year, $25 million in ransom paid. In just the first 3 months of 2016, over $2 million paid in ransom. A couple more stats. So 34% of small to medium-sized businesses fell prey to phishing emails in 2015. And then, looks like I skipped one up at the top, 72% were unable to access their data for 2 days. And then we have the sources of all this data as well, and I'm happy to share if you're interested in more of these reports, just to get a little bit more of a background and more of these trends. Happy to share those with you. Just use the question tool and let us know if you want more data and more of these stats. So, here's one really big problem with ransomware. You have no idea for weeks or even months. And it works really slowly in the start. It starts with those older files on your system based on the last date opened or the last date modified. So it goes to the older files first. And that's why it can work slowly in the background. You don't even know that it's happening until you get one of these triggered messages for a ransom demand. So these are, we pulled these examples. You've got CryptoLocker. Have any of you experienced ransomware? Have any of you seen one of these trigger on your machine? So once your files are encrypted, you're going to see this screen displayed by the hacker. It's explaining how to pay so that you can unlock those files. And so, like we just looked at on the last screen, we saw how much has been paid in ransomware. And in the past, ransom started in the $300 to $500 range, right? But now, fast forward to 2016, companies are being hit with ransoms in the thousands of dollars. And it looks like, I'm just reading some of the comments. One of the comments, I think I asked, has anyone been hit by ransomware? One comment was, God, yes. Bruce, what was the story there? Did you pay the ransom? What did you do in that case? Eric says, not mine, but my clients. How long ago was that? Do you know what the price of the ransomware was, of the ransom? So what we're looking at in 2016 is that companies are being hit with ransoms in the thousands of dollars, and paying that ransom invariably means paying some sort of e-currency or cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, right? And so then, once the hackers verify that payment, they'll provide the decryptor software, and then the computer starts the long process of decrypting all your files. So that's why what we saw on the last screen, we saw that the fastest response times until you're back up and running takes about 2 days. That was one of the stats on the last screen. But it can take up to 5 days in other cases. So that's a long time. How many of you, what is that cost of downtime? And can your business survive being down for 5 days? I think that the high majority would say no. I can't really think of any business that would survive being down completely for 5 days. On top of all that, there are so many different types of ransomware in circulation. So there are just so many different strains. CryptoLocker is one example. And CryptoLocker is targeting computers running Windows, and it restricts access to the infected computers. And then CryptoLocker, it appears that it's been spreading through fake emails designed to mimic the look of legitimate businesses. And so it's been doing that, and then also through phony FedEx and UPS tracking notices. So that's where we've been finding CryptoLocker Ransom 32 is another one. Ransom 32 is actually a variety of like a ransomware as a service. So it effectively puts the power to create ransomware in the hands of nearly anyone, regardless of even their technical know-how. And what makes Ransom 32 really dangerous is that it's coded entirely using JavaScript. So that means it can be used to target computers running Windows, Mac OS X, and Linux as well. There are many others that infect victims' data, and there's no way that you can decrypt those files for free. LOCKY is another one that we've heard of quite often recently. With LOCKY, it renames all of your important files so that they have that extension .locky, and it encrypts them so that only the cyber criminals have that decryption key, and you have to buy that decryption key from them for about $400 in Bitcoin. So LOCKY I want to talk about a little bit more because LOCKY is one that really changes the game. LOCKY, they're targeting a worldwide audience. They're targeting businesses and organizations throughout your entire network. And one of those main routes of infection has been through those spam email campaigns like I just mentioned. A lot of them are disguised as invoices. So they're actually Word documents containing a malicious macro attached to those emails. And what's happening with LOCKY is that computers in Europe and lots of other places have been hit by these massive email spam campaigns carrying that malicious JavaScript attachment, and it installs the LOCKY ransomware that way. Japan, New Zealand, Australia, they've also been targeted in really similar spam attacks. And then closer to home, many of you may probably heard that Amazon users were targeted recently by a massive phishing campaign. And it's estimated that about 30 to 100 million spam messages were sent out claiming to be an Amazon.com shopping order update. So here's where the even bigger problem sets in when it comes to, now LOCKY encrypts the files on a workstation, but then it can travel across your network. It can encrypt files on all of your network drives, and that's how just one LOCKY infected user can bring a whole department or an entire organization to a halt. And what we've been seeing is that back in the beginning days of ransomware, hackers really only went after consumers and their individual files and folders. But these strains of ransomware are increasingly infecting businesses' systems, and especially LOCKY, they've really upped the ante on extorting payment for the decryption keys as well. So let's take a look at how you actually know if you're infected, because once you do know that you're infected, what do you do, and how do you actually prevent an attack from happening? Because that's what you really want to do is work against it and prevent it from happening. So we've seen, like we were just discussing, hackers are primarily infecting a machine using phishing emails, using free software downloads, things like unpatched programs, compromised websites, even poisoned online advertising. That can all get you unknowingly affected with malware. And then it doesn't even activate, like we mentioned, until weeks or months later. So in the most common scenario, an attack starts when a user just opens a malicious email attachment that installs the virus onto their computer and begins encrypting all their files. So here are a couple of the ways that you know if you're infected, if you've experienced any of these symptoms. A lot of the times hackers will send a file with multiple extensions. So they're trying to hide the true type of file that you're receiving. And then if the user opens the email attachment or maybe clicks on a link to a software download without first verifying authenticity, the ransomware infection begins. So here are some of those symptoms. You suddenly can't open normal files. You get errors that the file is corrupted or has the wrong extension. A window opens to a ransomware program, you can't close it. Or you get one of those messages with instructions how to pay to unlock your files. Often you'll see that a program warns you that there's a countdown until the ransom increases, or you won't be able to decrypt your files, or you'll see files in directories with names such as how to decrypt files.txt or decrypt_instructions.html. All right, so what can be done? It's important, of course, to have antivirus, but that's more like a firewall, stopping things from coming in. But if you lack sophisticated cybersecurity infrastructure for anti-malware to stop things once they're already on your system, then you're at risk. So let's talk about some of the best practices. Of course, being on this webinar here, that's all of us. We're all at risk. We can all be at risk. None of us are actually immune to these types of attacks, and everyone has irreplaceable data. Every one of us has data that cannot be replaced. So now let's kind of shift and talk about how to effectively and also, most importantly, affordably take the proper preventative measures. So you don't really want to be the one stuck with that FBI recommendation to just pay up. So let's get you a new set of best practices and help prevent this from happening to you. But before we dive into that, I do want to do a quick poll. You've heard quite a bit from me, so I'd love to hear from you. So launching this poll right here, and I'll give everyone a moment to answer. So this one, we're simply asking, when it comes to ransomware, which of these is you? Yes, I've been a victim of ransomware, or maybe your client, yes, one of my clients has been a victim of ransomware would be A. No, I haven't experienced this type of security breach would be B. And C, I don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. Wow, right now we have 90% of you who voted, and we are at 50-50 between A and B. Wow. I didn't expect A to be quite that high because I ran a ransomware webinar last week, and B was the most common answer, was no. We did have quite a few A's, but it was not 50-50. So I'd love to hear these stories to see what exactly it was that happened, when you or your clients found out, and what you did as well. Okay, we've got 95% of you who voted, so I'll go ahead and close it down with that, and I'll share the results here so you can see. All right, let me go ahead and get those results shared on the screen. So we had the majority, 55%, said yes. Myself or my client has been a victim of ransomware. 45% said no, not yet. So, wow, for those 45% of you who said no, does the 55% who say yes worry you? I'm interested to hear. All right, and I'd love to hear what those stories from you guys who answered A as well. But let's go ahead and dive into. Let me close these results so that we can get into really the best practices that we talked. That's really the subject matter for today. So, Bruce says the 45% may not know yet that they've been hit. Very good point, Bruce. That's one of the things that we talked about on one of the first slides. That there are two types of businesses, right? Those that have been hit by ransomware and those that have been affected but don't know it yet. Okay, so let's talk about how to work against ransomware then. Let's talk about those best practices, how to avoid ransomware. One way is, of course, that backup and disaster recovery can protect you. But this is only if you do it right. So we want to talk about lots of different options and a few different scenarios for you. So right now, here are the two options that majority of people will look at, right? Here are the two options that if I get infected. There's the ransomware is silently, slowly, over weeks, encrypting files on a computer. And then one day you get that ransom notice. So you either A, pay the ransom and hope that they provide that encryption key to unlock your systems and files, or B, you'll go to restore your restore your systems to a point before the infection took place. Well, how long is it going to take you to restore systems from pre-infection? And how much is that downtime going to cost you? Would the downtime be costlier than paying the ransom? So there are a lot of things to consider. And if you don't have access to a recent backup, then you likely have no choice but to pay the ransom, and then hope that the encryption key or decryption key is provided. But all of this takes time, and we know that time equals money. So if you do get infected, a couple of things that you just want to make sure you do right away. First thing you do is get the infected machine off the network. So you want to stop the malware from spreading. You really want to assume that the malware could make use of that internet connection and then it's spreading itself to others. So you need to isolate the machine and stop all network communication from the spread of malware. Worst case scenario, you may even temporarily turn off the network access completely just for the entire office until you get that outbreak under control. And then next, reset your BIOS time. In some instances, you can reset the BIOS to stop the clock, and when, this really gives you more time to prepare your backups and prepare recovery. Also, according to privacy, IT admins don't need to be afraid of the ransomware's countdown timer that doubles the ransom if you reset your BIOS time back. So this is going to give you more time to calm down, recover your key files, and eliminate the malware. Then third, if you're hit with malware, you want to roll back from a previous backup. Having a recent backup is going to make it easy for you to restore operations as quickly and painlessly as possible, and then that'll save time and money for yourself and the business. So here's one option. Here are a couple of screenshots from, this is my backup and recovery account with Infrascale. By default, Infrascale keeps everything. So I have every version ever backed up. So I could roll back to any date that I choose. I can back up, therefore, with a low RPO, or recovery point objective, and low RTO, or recovery time objective. Since I regularly back up my machine, I just recover my useful files, and then I go ahead and keep working. But let me repeat one point that I just made again. So I said that by default, Infrascale keeps everything and forever. So the importance of that forever archiving is really critical because most BDR systems age content out after a couple of weeks, maybe a month, but ransomware can take months to get into your systems discreetly. So it's not just the idea of having any old backup system in place. You need a backup system that has forever archiving and that component built right into it. And my Infrascale account isn't just backup and recovery software on my machine. So here's a quick snapshot of my dashboard. And my dashboard provides just one management console, one single pane of glass for all of my data protection, all my cloud storage, and it doesn't require VPN access. So from here, I can view activity alerts, I can access reporting and monitoring, I can monitor account usage, retention settings, control remote deployments, and use our MSI to deploy anywhere in the world on machines as well. Here's the account level detail shot in my dashboard. So when ransomware goes through your system, I mentioned it modifies the file that it touches, and it starts with those older files first. So if it's a file that we're backing up, we're going to recognize it as a changed file. And in your dashboard, in the backup account, we have account level details. So there's an analytics tab, just like you see right here. And the analytics tab will show, you have options there, those radio buttons, the last 24 hours, last 30 days, or calendar view. So you can see everything, and you see all the analytics of which machine has the most changes. So what we did is we took these analytics and we created a new monitoring alert. So if you have a large number of newly modified files, aren't you going to want to know what happened? What type of event was that? What's touching all my data? An average backup of changed files is going to just continue as normal, but an unusually large backup will then trigger an alert to the admin. So the admin will subscribe to monitoring alerts and then get those alerts. Then that's something that you know you should investigate. What can be happening? Maybe it's malware, maybe you have ransomware. So we're calling this monitoring alert anomaly detection. And let's take a look at it in action and actually see what's happening within the dashboard. So now let's walk through how to set up an anomaly warning. Oops, sorry about that. Let me go back and actually start this video. There we go. Great. Okay, so within the dashboard, this is how you'll actually set it up. You'll just go up to settings and click monitoring. And then in the monitoring page, you'll see the enable anomaly detection setting right down there in the bottom. And then we let you set the threshold. So the warning is going to be released when that threshold's passed. So what we do is calculate a rolling average on the number of modified files over time for each device. And then if the modified file count for a backup surpasses that predetermined threshold, then we release the warning. And if you're subscribing to error events, then you get an email alert. But it also automatically appears in the general monitoring page where we can see more info. And then if you see an event, we recommend you investigate it. You can open more details and see things like backup duration, total files processed, how many files were modified, and a lot more. And then you can also download the logs if you go into that manage action so that you can investigate it at a file level if you need to. And typical users that we've seen, they're backing up 5 to 10 modified files per day. So, a lot of work is done online. You'll have 5 to 10 per day, just on average. That's what we've typically seen. So anything 3 to 4 times that is going to be cause for investigation. And if you have one of those unusually large backups, it doesn't always mean malware. You need to investigate it. It could just be that a user's adding a significant number of files and maybe the IT admin isn't aware of that. Maybe that they've added drives or they've changed file names. But that's really important to learn as well, because when you're paying for usage, that's going to then increase your cost, and it's something that the admin should be aware of anyhow. So now they're paying for usage, they're going over, and that's an easy fix. But when it comes to this anomaly detection, nobody has proactive alerting. What we've seen is that no BDR solutions out there today actually have this in place right now. Let me flip over to the next slide here now that we've gone through that, that how-to on setting up anomaly detection. So what we're seeing is everyone's just simply waiting to get infected and then quickly trying to pay the ransom, roll back to a previous date, et cetera, et cetera. So in addition to that anomaly detection that we just saw in that video, Infrascale is really a complete end-to-end solution. We offer double-blind encryption, protection for all servers, workstations, endpoints, unlimited archiving, which is really important, which we talked about just a minute ago, unlimited test recoveries as well to ensure that the policies you're working the policies you're working with are set exactly the way you want them to be, and that they're working the way you want them to be, because you have the ability to set those policies. 24/7 support, 365 days a year as well. And not to mention, we're already protecting thousands of businesses globally with our geographically dispersed data centers. Each of these red dots represents a business that we protect. So we've talked quite a bit about backup and recovery, but what if that's just not enough? And we know how long it can take to fully recover all your data from a large backup. And on top of that, you need to first recover your data, then you'll need your servers and applications back in the right order. So that's going to require configuration, running scripts, applying IP addresses, checking connectivity. And that's where DRAS comes in, which is Disaster Recovery as a Service. And Disaster Recovery as a Service, DRAS, lets you quickly fail over your systems and it supports DR to be on demand, like in this scenario that we're going to look at here. So here are some end users working away, and unknown to them is that they have ransomware running silently in the background on their machine, and then suddenly those red X's, like you see, that alert there when the ransomware attack pops up. So with on-demand failover, you can simply log in from any browser, even if it's on a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. You can log into the dashboard from any browser. You can roll back to a previous state and just instantly recover a clean version of the entire environment. So not just files and folders, but all of the applications and servers running as well. That way everyone keeps working, and that whole process happens in just minutes. Now here's a little bit of a more detailed way to look at it. So we can break it down a little bit more. So on the left, you see the traditional backup and recovery flow. So here's the typical backup and recovery with a production box and a backup server next to it, which is then copying to some data storage. It can be a tape drive, an on-prem disk array, the cloud, so any offsite storage there. And it's just copying over a wire. So then when that disaster happens, you need to copy that data back out of storage. And then you have to reconfigure, etc. And that all takes time. So you end up recovering in days. So it's a very long process. But DRAS on the right, on the other hand, is very different. So with DRAS, we don't want to have to copy or move any data. So what we want, while you just first will have it replicating onto your offsite storage, when a disaster happens, all you need to do is simply spin up your working environment where that data is. We virtualize and create up to 200 machines on the fly, and we reconstruct your data center infrastructure where your data is sitting. So it's really important because ransomware has evolved so much recently. The primary issue used to be data loss. But now that ransomware has evolved, it will spread over the entire network. So it means that ransomware represents the data loss, but also of business interruption and downtime. So what Infrascale aims to solve, our mission, is to eradicate downtime and really focus on business continuity. So again, because those modern ransomware attacks are going to spread across the entire network, it's going to encrypt data on servers, on network folders, other computers. One of the biggest immediate issues is that your entire network goes down, your business operations completely shut down. So really, backup was the best solution when the issue was only data loss. But now we're all facing business interruption. So DR as a service, becomes a far better solution. And what we're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years is really that backup and recovery is going to disappear and be replaced by on-demand failover and DRAS solutions. So sure, yeah, we have a backup and recovery solution, but what you should be looking at is a failover solution for your data. So Infrascale is giving two really great options. You have two different solutions for ransomware without having to sacrifice any of your critical data or pay any ridiculously high ransoms. So with that, I want to launch one more quick poll. I'd love to hear from you guys again. So let me launch the second poll. When it comes to backup and disaster recovery, which of these is you? A, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup anytime, or failover anytime. And B, I wish I had a backup and disaster recovery but can't afford it, or I wish I had failover and can't afford it. Or C, I still don't think I'll be affected by ransomware. I threw that one in just to gauge, you know, how everyone, which is you when it comes to backup and disaster recovery, and when it comes to ransomware. Which bucket are you in? We've got 73% of you who voted. Thank you, everyone, for participation. Bruce says, C is just to see who's listening. That's true. Okay, 90% have voted. I'll give everyone just another moment to vote here. And then meanwhile, I can kind of scroll through these comments and questions here and see if, oh wow, we've got lots of participation. This is great. I'm just scrolling through some of these comments now. So let's see. We've got one person said, wow, we get at least one customer every week or so that has been hit by some form of these. Another comment, 3 clients in 48 hours got hit, 100 plus computers down due to the virus. Next comment, restored from backup and did not have to pay at both clients. Eric, that is great news. That's great to hear. I have had 2 clients hit with ransomware, says Ron. Bruce says, may or may not give you the program to restore the data. Had one client who did not get the program back, but they took the money. And we hear about more and more situations like that as well. Brian says, 3 customers hit so far encrypting Office files. Wow, fortunately all files had been backed up recently enough. No ransom paid, but users involved were very rattled. All came in as email attachments looking like applications for employment. David asked, sorry, I missed this. Is this being recorded and made available? Yes, David. This recording will be available in the next 24 hours. Okay, and I can also see that Aaron Jordan, our sales engineer, also replied to you. Infrascale.com/webinars. Infrascale.com/webinars. That's where you'll find all of our webinar recordings, and this one will be up there within the next 24 hours. Wow, okay, lots more great comments coming through here. Let's go ahead and let me wrap up the presentation, and then I'll come back here to these questions and comments, and we can discuss this a little bit more as well with Aaron, our sales engineer, on the line. So let me close this pull down and share the results. Thank you everyone again for participating there. We had 91% of you who have voted. 60% said, I can confidently roll back to a previous backup or failover anytime. So I'm curious, when was the last time you tested that? And I did just read a couple of great comments that said we were able to recover and we didn't have to pay the ransom, but I also read a number of comments that said we had to pay the ransom and we didn't even get the files back. 40% say, I wish I had backup and disaster recovery but can't afford it. So we're going to talk about that and touch on that as well. Let's see here. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and hide them that, or take down those poll results and get back into the presentation. Thanks again, everyone, for participating in that. Okay. So Infrascale is providing a solution for ransomware, again, without having to sacrifice your critical data, without having to pay any ridiculously high, and without having any lost profits due to downtime. Our customers have paid nothing in ransomware. And we have different solutions available depending on your business type, but we find that our solutions are up to 70% less than other competitors out there. So we're happy to share more of that data and information with you. What I'd like to do for the next step is to share a free 60-day trial with everyone to get set up, to test it out for yourself. We offer unlimited testing, so you can test it at any point, because ransomware is the #1 cybersecurity threat. An enterprise cloud backup and failover system is your #1 defense. So this 60-day free trial you can take advantage of by simply typing into the question tool and just saying that you'd like to take advantage of that, or you could send me an email at carla.fedrigo@infrascale.com. So my email address is down there at the bottom of the page. You can shoot me an email and request it, or just use that question tool to request that free trial. Great. All right. With that, I'd love to jump into the Q&A. And we do have our sales engineer, Aaron Jordan, on the line here. So I'm going to invite Aaron in so that we can dive into the Q&A. And remember, we do have a giveaway into the Q&A. So we are doing a prize giveaway, and all you need to do to be eligible for that is simply ask lots of relevant and on-topic questions. Don't forget in the handouts to grab a copy of these slides and also to grab a copy of the 2016 Disaster Recovery as a Service Attitudes and Adoption Report. So with that, Aaron, are you on the line, Aaron?
I am, yes.
Great. Okay, great. So what we'll do is I'll pass it over to Aaron, and he'll take it over with the Q&A.
Sure, thank you for that, Carla. And guys, just keep knocking out these questions, and I'll hit them as I go. I do want to start with something that Rajesh had just mentioned. He asked, and I already answered it and showed it to everyone, but I want to touch on this, and it'll lead me into the rest of the questions. Future trends of ransomware, is our software provider, is there a software provider like Microsoft, et cetera, doing anything about it? So in today's ransomware scenarios, the operating system manufacturers and software developers aren't doing anything about it because they just don't have products that help with it, right? There are other people out there that are already trying to do something about it. We've already got the FBI who have essentially given up and in some quotes say, just pay the ransom. But in this environment, should you just pay the ransom? And the answer is, of course, no, right? If you can get away with not doing it, then you want to save yourself the money. So the way you save yourself the money, and as I mentioned to Rajesh, is you have to take matters into your own hands. You need to build yourself a fortification. It's like those old castles back in the medieval times when people would try to storm the castles. Their solution was to build moats and higher walls and get people ready for war. This is what this is. This is war. So you need to be able to build up your defenses. So the way you do that is you get anti-malware software, antivirus software. You get a backup solution. So we're a piece of the solution, not the whole solution, right? We're just one part of the armor that you're going to be wearing. So we recommend that you get that locked down and have a disaster recovery plan in place, and most importantly, practice recovery routines. You want to make sure that if something does happen, you already know, it's muscle memory, how you're going to get the data back, what you're going to do, and what return times look like. And then moving into this next question, how can we be sure your environment will not be affected with ransomware? That's also a good question. So we actually have our own malware that we picked up from a lot of larger vendors. So we have a lot of enterprise malware in all of our data centers. But also, of course, there's all kinds of other things like, for example, the malware is by having somebody click on something they shouldn't be clicking on, right? We've got a few people, well, not a few people, we've got a team of sysadmins, and they don't touch the data, right? It's completely blind and encrypted. So there is no way for us to get somebody bringing something in. Those environments are completely isolated except for the backup feed solution. What if somebody backs up a file that's been encrypted, or maybe the actual virus that caused the encryption? Well, our systems are set up in a Linux-based environment to prevent any kind of auto execution. So we do not have the ability, or the systems do not have software does not have the ability to auto execute itself. So it will not be able to run rampant in people's backup sense. More importantly, when it's in the cloud, it's essentially frozen, right? It's locked down, nothing can happen. It just adds files. As you add files, change block tracking occurs, and then re-encryption occurs as well. So we make sure things are locked down and isolated from one another. So your data sets are isolated from other people's data sets. So in the event that, let's say that Rajesh's client does upload a file that started it all for its environment, it's essentially isolated and locked out. So it's basically going to be dormant. So when you do pull your data back down, just make sure to clear that out and run a malware check afterwards. Let's see. Next question, is this just an enterprise product, or do you have small home office versions from Donald Beckerman? So we have both, Donald. The best way to think about Infrascale is a solution to your problems, and that solution is a tool belt, right? It's got many different tools within the tool belt. And you as a reseller, which by the way, we only sell through the channel, so we will pick up a reseller and then you can rebrand the direct-to-cloud product and resell that, or deposit an appliance and resell those. And the point is, you would interact with your clients, we would help you sell that with you, and the idea is you have the ability to sell endpoint protection, which is rebrandable. It works on iOS, Android, Windows, Mac. And then when you have to go up market to the larger environments, or they have perhaps a need for an on-site box, or even Linux or some other, we have pretty much most operating systems covered with the larger end appliance. You could deposit an appliance on a client site and then have that replicate again to either our cloud or another appliance, essentially creating your own cloud. So we're very flexible with both private clouds and the Infrascale public cloud, along with whether it is a mom and pop all the way up to we've got a school that's got a petabyte of data. So just to give you an example of how large we can grow. Bruce Sinclair asked, how do you connect with my customer and get to their server room via VPN? So in this instance, we're talking about if we're using VPN, or you're using the bootability, which is something that I should probably rewind and explain. So there's two real types of solutions. There's a direct cloud with files and folders. You pull the files down that you need. There's no need for a VPN that just goes over the internet. There is seating available for those larger environments that just need that. Now, we have a secondary option, an appliance that sits on site, does the backup, deduplication, encryption, compression, then sends that to the secondary site. Now, this appliance also has the benefit of business continuity. You can right-click a machine and spin it up. If it's a VMware machine, Hyper-V machine, or a physical Windows box, we can virtualize it. That I see Bruce said like data appliance. Yes, like a data appliance, except more than just Windows. I can do Windows, Mac, Linux. I'm trying to think of all of them. iSeries box of the HPUX, AIX, Novell NetWare. We've got all of the gamut covered. We've got all kinds of backups that we can do. Now, again, the machines that we can boot today are Windows, physical, and VMware and Hyper-V machines. And those can come online. And then you can set up a VPN, or we'll actually give you an agent that you would install on your client's machine so they can work from home. And then it would essentially just pre-configure the default Windows VPN system. And so in the event it does go down in your local site, or you get hit with flooding or a crypto locker and you need to bring those machines back online, simply go to your cloud, boot it up, and then the VPN should already be active on your client's machine because it's pre-installed. And so now they're connecting to the machines. They got complete business continuity. They have no idea that those machines are down, or a smoking pile of plastic, or submerged in 20 feet of water, or whatever happens to happen. So it's not just disaster recovery, but it's also business continuity. Any more questions? I don't see anything else coming up here. All right, Bruce, that works. Let's see. Oh, yeah, so Bruce didn't know about the appliance. So, yeah, we cover a gamut of items. Again, direct cloud and an appliance, and that sits on site, and it does a lot of the work for you. And that does bare metal, it does file folder, system state, disaster recovery images, et cetera. So it covers everything on that. Any other questions? All right, so Bruce asks, for Windows, is this backup custom built by Infrascale? So it is an Infrascale solution, but the Windows direct-to-cloud is rebrandable. So you could put your logo on it. You actually get a dashboard to run and control everything, whether it's the appliance or the direct-to-cloud. But with the direct-to-cloud, you can put your logo on it, rename it, put a banner across the top, set the desktop icon, set the email address, etc., so that for all intents and purposes, you created the product yourself. So it's completely white labeled. Same with the report. Eric asks, cost for many small clients high. What about the smaller client? So the way you work this is let's say that you've got a smaller client, and this is going to be probably better keyed up for the salespeople, but I can give you an idea. Let's say you have a smaller client. What you do is with the direct-to-cloud, you would buy, like, let's say, a terabyte of space, right? And then you can break up that terabyte of space amongst any number of sites, machines, backup sets, whatever you want. So basically, that terabyte, you can do whatever you want with it. And from there, you can also, within that terabyte, create companies and sub-users within those so that the data is isolated, but you, as the administrator, get to jump in and do whatever you got to do. It's also important to note that that data is sealed away HIPAA compliant, right? You can also select what we call UltraSafe and UltraSafe Max with that. UltraSafe means that the client sets the encryption key as well, and UltraSafe Max means that they set 2 encryption keys. Now, before we even talk about encryption keys, Infrascale has no way to get to the data in the first place because it's encrypted. It's double blind, right? But when you user adds 2 more layers of encryption security on it, then not even the NSA, they'll knock on our door and we can just tell them, sorry, go pound sand, there's something we do for you. Bruce Sinclair also asked, the backup engine is yours or a third party? Everything is ours, Bruce. Everything is ours. In fact, Infrascale has been doing backup since early 2001. We started off as a company called SOS Online Backup. And then what happened was Infrascale was founded in 2005 and absorbed both SOS Online Backup and a bare metal, or not a bare metal, but an appliance company called Eversync Solutions, who was also formerly known as RadioTech. So we absorbed both, and because we have this massive cloud infrastructure, we married everything together. So now you've got this tool belt that controls everything for one centralized location that allows you to, point it to one cloud or be your own cloud or whatever you want to do, and it's all completely ours. Brian asks, we have a pervasive SQL accounting system that is in use 24/7. The backup tools know when a backup is running, so backs up the BTR files and then leaves the live TRX files out of the backup to post them when the local backup is done. How would your cloud backup deal with that, or can it run apps before and after the cloud backup to emulate the local backup? Brian, that's a really good question. So check this out. So there are 2 options for this. So if you want to use just our simple direct to cloud, you can always have your script run and then the software can run and snapshot that because it'll use VSS. But for the big boys, or in this instance for a cleaner snapshot because you are running a pervasive SQL, which usually runs in a Linux environment. I could be wrong. Sometimes people do put it in Windows. But in that case, I would deploy an appliance, and then there are the ability to set before and after snapshot scripts. So you can basically prepare everything beforehand, take the snapshot, get a clean, fresh, consistent snapshot, and then resume all the transactions. So you can literally take the script that you're using today and paste it into our interface, and it'll do that. So you actually will essentially be able to automate on a more powerful system exactly what you're doing today. Bruce asks, are you using VSS to backup? Yes, that's how we're able to pick up locked files, so things like OSTs and PSTs. So even if your user has that file open and they're working on it, they don't like to close it, no problem. We can definitely pick those up from their machine and send them off-site just fine. I have someone asking, they actually sent a private message, can you explain the appliance a little more? Yeah, so local appliance sits on-site, can be virtual or physical, depending on your needs. Can replicate to a secondary site, virtual or physical, depending on your needs. You deploy an appliance per client, generally speaking. They have the ability to do, again, bare metal, file folder, system state. They have SQL native plugins, Exchange native plugins, and Exchange database level recovery plugins. They have the ability to spin up virtual machines, VMware and Hyper-V, and also physical Windows machines, and a few operating systems of Linux. They also, again, replicate, or they do local backups. The data is stored at 256-bit AES locally. It's sent over an SSL and then stored again at 256-bit AES in the cloud. That data is, again, also double-blind encrypted. I can't see it. Nobody at my company can see it. Don't lose it, the password. Let's see. Yeah, it's generally dropped off in a single site. Bruce Sinclair asks, entry cost for one server appliance and 1 terabyte of space. That's actually something that you would need to talk to our sales reps about. The good news is they'll give you both an MSRP and reseller pricing. So you can see out of the gate how much money you can mark it up to, so that if, for example, if an end user comes to us and they say, we want to buy your product, we'll say, hey, we don't sell it directly, but here, let us hook you up with one of our resellers, And then the best we can do is quote them MSRP, and then when you go talk to them, you already know that there's a pretty good margin baked in for you when you resell it. So there's something more to talk about to a sales rep. Rajesh asks, how do we establish a connection between your site and our site for the backups? How do we make sure that connection is secure? So the direct-to-cloud will actually automatically establish that connection for you, and it is via SSL. So the data, again, is encrypted locally and then sent over an SSL and then encrypted on our side. With the appliance, everything's done locally and, again, encrypted locally when it lands on the appliance and then sent over an SSL and encrypted on the other side as well. So it does it automatically. The connection will be secure automatically. Now, when it comes to, let's say you're using the appliance and you boot the machine in the cloud and you're connecting to it for business continuity reasons, you then have the ability to have that VPN IPsec, or you can have an MPLS line terminate into our data center, and then you'll have direct access, but on a secure connection to your isolated slice of heaven, if you will, in the cloud.
Okay, and I want to, sorry to jump in here. I want to be sure to be respectful of everyone's time. It looks like we've got less than 5 minutes left here. And I put one last poll up on the screen. Just simply, would you like to learn more about ransomware or BDR from Infrascale? A is yes, I'd like to learn more about Infrascale and failover DRAS. B, yes, educational ransomware or BDR info would be helpful. And C, no, not yet, maybe later. So if everyone could go ahead and answer that last poll, and then if we have one last question, after that we'll go ahead and do the giveaway.
Sure, one last question here. Bruce says, how many snapshots are done, or is it just full backups for Windows? In other words, I use Shadow Protect on 80+ servers that do hourly snapshots. So it's really up to you, Bruce. You can do snapshots every hour, every 15 minutes. You can do fulls, incrementals, differentials. And then because the appliance does global dedupe, that means everything that touches the appliance is globally. It won't really affect you too much to be doing, a lot of full backups or et cetera, just do incrementals or whatever. And so the point is, you can do whatever you want. And you can even do that on any level you want, bare metal, file folder, et cetera. All right, Carl, I'll let you go ahead and announce the winner.
Okay, great. Thank you, Aaron, for being here for that Q&A and answering all those questions. If you guys have any more technical questions, Aaron would be happy to answer them. And you also have my contact information, so feel free to get in touch with me as well. And it looks like the winner for today is Bruce. So congratulations, Bruce. I will email you this afternoon to give you details of that. So congratulations. And and he says, and he's excited to be the winner, so that's great. Congratulations. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We really appreciate your time. We look forward to talking with you more in the future, and we look forward to working with you as well. So have a great day. Thanks.